yesterday, in fact, head of Intel made it a tweet. He said, "Every Thursday, I do a 24-hour prayer and fasting day. This week, I will invite you to join me in praying and fasting for the 100,000 Intel employees as they navigate this difficult period. Intel and its team is of seminal importance to the future of industry and US." Here you have it. The head of Intel is now saying that Intel is living on a prayer. A big portion of that have to do with the US chip ban, right?
Yes, and Intel is actually getting investigated in China right now for uh, basically China is saying we think the Intel chips are being used to spy on China, and it's not trustworthy, which makes completely sense, right? Like America does not buy Huawei chips, so why should China buy Intel chips, which could be used to spy pretty much on everyone?
Wait, does
And
China have alternative to Intel chips?
Yes, the most of the server CPUs that are sold by Intel, you can obviously buy AMD, but that's still American. But as China continues to increase its domestic production of CPUs for like the Huawei chips, you can use those. I mean, and then you can use some of the other chip designers like the Alibaba's chips which are getting fabbed at TSMC, which hasn't been basically blocked by the U.S. government yet. But obviously, eventually you want all of that to be produced inside of China to prevent any kind of high-performing chips from uh, getting sanctioned during the middle of the production. So yeah, like the if you can most of the personal computers you have in China for the government offices, you don't actually need the latest generation Intel, which are actually, by the way, melting down to for these applications. You can use Huawei chips, you can use like Longsong chips, you can use any of these other people's chips. Like most of us are not using don't need to use the latest generation CPUs to run like a simple work applications and things like that. And for the server computers, you can just tag on more of the maybe you get to like 80% of Intel chips, but you have more of them around. You can still do the computations, and especially these days, most of the computations are done by GPUs anyways. So that's one of the reasons that Intel is suffering. And like I think we talked about this before. We think that Intel's probably gonna get nationalized at some point because they can't let it fall, and that just means it's going to get less and less competitive long term. And Pat Gelsinger, his dismissal was quite kind of sad actually because they said he is going to retirement immediately with basically no replacement, which just tells you uh, how bad that was. But so yeah, I think the other thing when we talk about like gallium, which is really important, you use gallium for all the latest radars, right? And what people haven't looked into is just that what has the China's initial round of gallium sanctions done? And basically, what I've seen is that the in terms of aluminum and alumina productions, from 2022 to 2023, China's market share in both of these areas have grown. So like the sanctions haven't really affected anything because in terms of the production process, in terms of the energy required to produce them, it's significantly on China's side. So other countries through this time hasn't been incentivized to actually raise their production of alumina and aluminum, which are needed uh, to basically which are basically need to produce the gallium. I took a look at the some of the math regarding to aluminum. Basically, you need you need like 600 billion kilowatt hour or 600 terawatt hour of electricity to produce the amount of uh, yeah, to produce the amount of like aluminum that China produced in 2023. And America consumed over 4,000 terawatt hour of electricity in all of 2023. So like basically China's aluminum power usage is equal to 15% of America's entire grid. Obviously, America doesn't.
Now
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
saw people in Twitter they're arguing, well, But what about Canada? Canada has plenty full of cheap hydropower. If America doesn't have the power grid to support additional aluminum production, well, Alcoa, the American aluminum company, they can just shift more production to Canada, leveraging Canada's cheap hydropower, and then to manufacture gallium that way. And that this is again a process of indigenizing production in America to re-industrialize America, including Canada. What do you say to that?
Well, Canada itself is a relatively small country, and it has maybe, I'm just speaking off the top of my head, it probably has anywhere from 1/5 to 1/10 of America's power generation capacity. And it's just unreasonable to think that Canada, with as many, there's a many issues going on in Canada right now. Like it's just kind of impossible to think that Canada, with what it is, can build up enough capacity in terms of power generation to actually support these things. In fact, Alcoa just recently closed its Intel coal smelter. This was like about a year ago. And in general, you'll see that whether it's Australia, America, or Canada in the past 2 years, they've been closing aluminum uh, production factory just because they can't compete with the Chinese producers. And it's gotten to the point where China is cutting that export subsidies on the metals that it refines. Like people don't realize when you close these refineries, uh, there's expertise lost. There's all this capex being lost, and there are many reasons why these things are lost. Like it's a lot cheaper, a lot better to keep these things open at a loss rather than just closing them down. People are going to have to move to different industries, and it takes much more expense to bring them back up later.
But
So,
Trump is going to impose a 60% tariff across the board on Chinese products. So I assume on Chinese aluminum also. Wouldn't that bring the production back to United States and reindustrialize America and make America great again?
well, unfortunately for Canadians, he's also imposed a 25% tariff on the Canadians. And which is going to destroy many Canadian industries, by the way, as someone who lived there, grew up there. And a lot of these tariff talks are kind of silly when you think about the effect that it will have on the competitiveness of the downstream products. Um, you know, when you get when the downstream supply chain cost goes up 60%, and your competitors are not having the same 60% tariff on their supply chain, then you just can't compete against that in the global market. So
But TP,
I mean I don't I
why does America need to compete in the global market? Can America just replicate what China did? By have an industrial policy based on market access. Like tariff is basically restricting market access of America, right? And then that will force you will force higher prices for sure, but you will also force the American producers to produce for the whole market. America itself is a large market. It's 300 million people. Wouldn't that be enough to support its own ecosystem of American industries? That's native. That's indigenous manufacturing process.
Yeah, there's a reason, kind of a reason why we offshored all this stuff in the first place, because we wanted to keep the cost down. All the smart people in America wanted to go into service industry, finance, and things that generate much higher, um, you know, margins. And as a result of that, we lost a lot of expertise in all these manufacturing supply chain, and clearly, it's still not. It really hasn't come back, and if nobody knows the exact effect of all of these tariffs or sanctions that they're planning. Uh, but it's kind of silly to assume that America can bring all these manufacturing jobs, which are most likely going to be put in labor unions, and we've seen the recent longshore uh, strike. what kind of like and also the auto worker strikes, like what kind of like uh, power the unions have once they start doing manufacturing of those things, and how much the cost just escalates. And that's going to have like wider effect in America, whether it's having prolonged high interest rates and much higher debt and things like that.
The longshore strike, that worker strike, that's gonna bring the wage up, right? I mean, giving more spending power by cutting automation in American sport.
Thousands of union dock workers across the country are striking for the first time in nearly 50 years.
Our main focus right now is automation. Automation. And we can't have automation.
They are demanding a total ban on automated cranes, gates, and container moving trucks.
I mean, isn't that good? Isn't that good? By cutting automation, you're giving more people jobs.
Well, that one's kind of a disaster on its own because we've seen what happens in the Chankay port, which looks like the China Shanghai Yangshan port right now, right? So back in the days, a lot of the South American, Latin American cargo to Asia in general goes through Long Beach port. I think that's Long
Yes.
Beach port, and without going through the Long Beach port, which is like the largest port in America. Uh, these ports can now go to Chankay port before going to Asia. If you think about the amount of throughput you get in fully automated ports that is massive. Like if you've seen the picture of this Chankay port, it's humongous, right? If all these like cargoes from South America now go to Chankay port, or let's say you're like a farmer somewhere in the middle of Amazons, and you ship your crop and wheat or any kind of stuff over to Chankay port by road, by trucks, right? Rather than sending to like the Atlantic coast and then go to America, then go to China. That reduces the the road trip time by a lot. And because these ports don't have to deal with this very expensive like labor cost and very slow labor cost, uh, your entire transportation cost goes down. So America not only loses out uh, you know, not only have its higher wage to deal with at home, but it also loses out all this traffic from South America or even Central America to Asia. I think there was a map recently just showing like how connected the BRI is right now, and basically you're gonna get to a point where the Latin American traffic to anywhere in Asia, including Central Asia and West Asia, will be a lot more convenient to go through Chankay port. Some of them will go through China. Like if you're going to like Kazakhstan or something like that, you want to go through China to get there, right? If you go to Indonesia and Bali, then you want to go to Chankay port because that is just so much closer, so much faster to transport your export
But
there.
TP,
So America
But
loses a
TP,
lot.
this is why we have the report. The Trump advisor is advising to level 60% tariffs on all goods that's going to be shipped out of the Chancay port in Peru, because they got the bases covered. TP, they're going to just slap tariff on Chancay port, so they're not going to have additional advantage over Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach, right?
Yeah, that would only affect the stuff from Latin America to to America. There are other ports in Latin America you can go through to go to America, but majority of the trade between Latin America uh, and the world is not to America right now. So for most of that, you can just go through Chancay port, at least the ones on the Pacific coast. All the stuff in Chile, all the stuff in uh, Bolivia, Ecuador. There's going to be a lot of mining going on that, you can just drive a truck through or ship through to like the Chankay port and then get it delivered over. This is going to be like a major economic opportunity to Peru. Like all the traffic, all the money they're going to make
In
from
fact,
this.
if that tariff really gets implemented, it means less goods will be coming to the ports of Los Angeles. I mean, because of the tariff. I mean, otherwise there might even still be traffic that could coming from Chancay Port to Port of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach. But if they're gonna get slapped American tariff for it, that traffic might die altogether. So yeah, it's I agree. It's totally self defeating.
But I would say most of these Trump people don't understand actually economics. They just want to win, win, win.
Well, yes, yes. This is why I find it amusing to see. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the comedy hour to start in January.